Morning, everyone. So today is a little less intense than yesterday, a little more fun perhaps. I want to talk about some of my favorite resources or tools as an intercultural learner and facilitator. So 5 of my favorite things. And I think this is good timing because some of you might be looking for gift ideas right now. It's also the end of the year, so you may be looking for kind of ways to reward your staff, whether it's through gifts or using end of the year funds to buy some special things for your office. I know when I was an international student advisor, I loved having resources in our shared library that I could go to and learn from. In fact, that's the first time I came across the name Michael Page, who I eventually chose to study under when I did my PhD. So here are some resources that if you're not familiar with them or if you don't have them already, you might want to consider investing in. So the first one, if you've listened to me at all, you've probably heard about this one, but is the book Student Learning Abroad: What Our Students Are Learning, What They're Not, and What We Can Do About It. And this is edited by Mick Vandenberg, Michael Page, and Chris Hemming-Liu. So this is from 2012, so it's not a particularly new book right now. So some of you might be wondering, why is she always talking about this book? Let me tell you why. I think it's the go-to place for a lot of the information that I'm talking about. It has 3 different sections in it. Part 1 is called Setting the Scene, and it includes a very good review up until 2012 of the research on why we need to facilitate intercultural learning in international education experiences. Prior to that, we didn't have a lot, and this has basically compiled all of the research up until that point about why we need to intervene in students' intercultural learning, that learning in international situations does not automatically lead to intercultural learning. So that's a great section in and of itself, but then in part 2, it goes into the foundations of teaching and learning related to intercultural experiences. So this is a book about study abroad, and a third of it is covering intercultural teaching and learning, which is fabulous. Part 3 is called Program Applications. So part 3 includes different chapters written by different folks about specific programs and what we might call interventions, ways of intervening in students' learning in an international experience to help facilitate their intercultural learning. So a number of the programs that I've been involved with are highlighted in there. I co-authored one of the chapters, but that's not the reason I'm endorsing it. I'm endorsing it because this is one great book that has a lot of helpful information in it. So that's resource number 1. Second is the book Building Cultural Competence. And I promise I won't just talk about books. I love books, but there are other tools and resources too. So I did a whole blog post about resources with intercultural activities. And so I can post that in the comments after I'm done talking. But if I had to pick one, the first book to put on your shelf with intercultural activities, this is probably the one I would recommend. So it's edited by Kate Berardo and Darla Deerdorf, names that you may have heard of before. And it has a lot of great activities. I pull from this a lot. I usually adapt to the activities, but it's a great starting point for ideas. And one of the things I really like about this book is that it has a great table of contents that organizes the activities around your outcome, around the risk level of the activity, audience. So you're not just going in there blind looking for activities without really having a sense of whether they might meet what you're looking for or not. So that's a great second resource. My third resource and the final book that I want to mention today is Personal Leadership book. A lot smaller than the other ones I've been talking about. So it's called Personal Leadership, Making a World of Difference, a methodology of 2 principles and 6 practices. So this goes into the personal leadership methodology, which was originally created by the 3 authors here, Barbara Shetty, Sheila Ramsey, and Gordon Watanabe. And this is a methodology that I both practice and I teach. I'm a senior facilitator of personal leadership. So the personal leadership methodology is something we cover and that we practice in the Facilitating Intercultural Learning program. Basically, this book is about what do you do when you know the intercultural content, but don't necessarily know how to practice intercultural competence in your life. So this is the book I recommend when people already have the basic intercultural knowledge and are wanting to put it into practice in their life and or help others practice intercultural competence in their lives. So this is very internally focused, like how do you lead yourself in times of uncertainty, transition, etc. So this is a great little book for that. So the 4th resource I want to recommend, I don't really have anything to show you, but it's the Intercultural Development Inventory, or the IDI. There are a lot of assessment tools out there, and this is one of them. The IDI is probably the most widely used, or one of the most, if not the most widely used tools for assessing and developing intercultural competence at the personal, team, organizational levels. So what I love about the Intercultural Development Inventory is that it helps us approach this topic and as teachers and as learners in a developmental way. So it helps you understand the complexity with which you are experiencing cultural difference, and therefore what are your strengths and what are your challenges. And it also gives you something called an individual development plan. So you have specific guidance on what you can do given where you are developmentally. The IDI, while the assessment itself is not necessarily pricier than other assessments, it is pricier in that in order to get your individual results, you have to sit down with someone who is a qualified administrator of the IDI to really understand those results in context. You cannot get your individual results without doing a one-on-one with a qualified administrator. I'm a qualified administrator. There are many other people out there who are qualified administrators. This might seem like a drawback, but to me, it's really a benefit because just getting a piece of paper that kind of says, here's where you are on the continuum or places you in a box isn't particularly helpful. But sitting down with an experienced intercultural coach and trainer and talking about what these results mean in the context of your life and where you might be getting stuck and what you can do about it, I do think is very, very helpful and really critical for anybody who wants to be doing this kind of work or is working across cultures in any way. So this is not necessarily something you can like go to Amazon or go to a store and pick off a shelf and purchase, but I wanted to recommend it as a great gift idea or something you can do to reward your staff, your team, your colleagues. I would have loved back in the day when I was first starting in international education if my supervisor had said, you're all going to take the IDI and you get a one-on-one debrief. So that's something, for example, that's included in the Facilitating Intercultural Learning program. I think it's a key component, that self-awareness of your own intercultural strengths and challenges and developing a plan for what you're going to do. So you could certainly sign up for the Facilitating Intercultural Learning program or sign up your staff and they will get that there. But also if you have a team of people and you want them to all take the IDI and get a one-on-one debrief, please reach out to me and we can talk about the possibility of doing that. So the 5th and final thing I want to mention, might be one that you're not familiar with. Some of you might be, but it's called Visuals Speak. So this is a bag, basically, full of images. This is an image set. So I'll show you some of the images. There are, I think, 200 images in this package, and they come in all different sizes. Mine are like light laminated. They also come in heavy lamination. So lots of different kinds of images. And basically, according to the Visual Speak website, these images have been selected based on an extensively tested method for creating images that engage both the creative and analytical parts of each participant. So this comes with a user manual with ideas about how to use these images. And these can be adapted in a lot of different ways. What I love about using visuals, other than the fact that it just breaks up a training from thinking, writing, listening, to doing something a little bit more active oftentimes, is that images help people kind of access a way of knowing that they might not be able to access otherwise. It helps them connect with themselves and learn in other ways on a deeper level sometimes, and sort of they respond to images in an emotional way, and then you have to articulate why you chose that particular image, for example. So I'll give you 2 examples of how I've used my Visual Speak images. As a simple practice, you can just ask a question, share, like use a prompt of some sort, and then ask people to choose an image. So a prompt I've used is when I'm working with faculty who are leading study abroad, I might say, how do you want to show up as a study abroad program leader? Think about that for a moment. Now go select an image. So they select an image that resonates with them in response to that prompt, and then they're asked to share with others and kind of articulate why they chose that particular image in response to this question. So that's one way I've used the Visual Speak. Then you can get a little bit more in depth or do a longer activity by doing a collage. So I used to teach a course called Leading Across Cultures. And I would ask the students to create a collage with images of what good leadership looks like to them. So first I would start with a prompt. Think of times in your lives where you've experienced good leadership. And I'd ask them to reflect in writing on what those experiences were and what good leadership looked like. Then I'd say, okay, go to the images and choose some images and create a collage of what good leadership looks like to you. Now, again, none of this is responding verbally yet to the images. They're just grabbing images that resonate with them. And then they sit down, they make a collage out of these images, and then they have to articulate what good leadership looks like to them. You could do that in writing to start, or go straight to sharing with others. So I had my students share and compare in a small group. So they had to explain their collage to 3 other students, and then they had to think about how they were similar and different, their collages. And that helped them understand what was important to them when it comes to good leadership, but also see that other people have very different ideas about leadership that are informed by their own experiences and cultural background. So again, those are Visuals Speak. If you go online, it's just visualsspeak.com with 2 S's in the middle. I can share that information in the chat as well. So those are my 5 top resources or recommendations, possible gift ideas for other folks. The Student Learning Abroad book, the book Building Cultural Competence for Activities, Personal Leadership book, the Intercultural Development Inventory, and the Visuals Speak Images set. So I'd love to hear in the chat what some of your favorite tools and resources are. And that's all for today. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope to see some of you back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.